Alright, time to get started on our chassis, but we're also talking about tools at the same time. So I thought I'd go ahead and talk about this honeycomb board, this chassis jig. That's like our corner carries. Other people carry it. We've been using these for a long time. Yes, there are very high-end, $100 and something boards like this that are pre-drilled, and they're not free. These, however, are very affordable, and they last, and they just do a great job just like anything else. So all these holes, alignment is great. You can see here I've already used this one several times, and you'll also notice some lines. Well, let's talk about that. So what I like to do is I'll bring where my rear axle is going to be is I usually measure probably about 1.5 inches, and then I'll draw a center line. It just helps me know exactly the right position everything's going to be. So I'll draw that first. Okay, and then these two lines here, these are just a guide for the width, depending on 1/24 or 1/32. They're about 2.25, and I keep them there, and that helps me align the front and rear axles with the wheels. It just helps me a little bit. And then finally, you'll see this red center line, and that's where the motor goes, and that helps me keep a really clean center. So what I usually do is I just use a square, and I'll bring it out, and that's what I use to get my line. So I'll take my square, I'll square it off, and then just a good old Sharpie and draw my lines. So that's how I do it. You don't have to. It just helps me in the build process. As far as the pins go, you get some of these chassis jig pins, and they have a taper, and they work really, really well. The only thing you have to be careful about is that these pins are very thin right here, and you can bend them easily. So you want to be careful with that. Now, the other option for these pins are just good old-fashioned 18 gauge brad nails. Ones that go in your nail gun. You get them. They look like that. They're all together, and you can break them apart, and they work great for going in these holes. So if you don't want a thicker taper at the top, one of these brad nails will do the trick. As far as longevity goes, well, here's one. I bet you I've had this thing for 6 years, and I don't know how many chassis has been made on it, but as you can see, it's seen a lot of work, and it still gets used today. You'll see the burns here. It kind of blocks off the lines, but we still have them here, and it's still a perfectly functional board. I just decided to buy a new one. I have another one over there. They're so inexpensive, I just keep them, especially when we have 2 people or more building chassis at the same time. It's handy to have them. So they're so inexpensive that it's just easy to have a couple of them on your bench. So anyway, I hope that helps you with the setup jigs. Like I said, you guys use whatever you want to use. If you don't feel these are good enough, then by all means get something else. But for us, this does the trick. Okay, time for our motor bracket. We've discussed this before. The JK321, it's a great bracket, but it doesn't sit level on your chassis jig because it has a little bit of a lip below the motor. Okay, it was designed for a different reason, but I like to do them nice and flush. So what I do is I bolt in a motor, I turn it over, I take a Sharpie, and I draw a line. So pretty simple. Now we'll take it off. I'll show you the next step. Okay, so what I've done is just take some masking tape. I follow that, I wrap it around, and then again I just use my Sharpie. I just draw a line that gives you a guide just to let you know when you're sanding or cutting how far you have to go. Alright, so I'm going to be sanding my bracket. What I like to do when I put the motor back in is get it on a flat surface, make sure these screws are loose, and you press down just a little bit, make sure everything is seated, and then tighten your screws. Now you're good to go. Now we'll take it over to the belt sander. Remember, you can cut this with a Dremel. There's not a lot, but I'm just going to show you my method with the belt sander. Okay, I have it on my Harbor Freight belt sander. It's nice and flat, does the job. The motor allows me to hold it while I sand it down. So we'll just turn on our belt sander and we will get right to it. Okay, we're all finished with that. Didn't take too long. I should have mentioned you always probably want to use gloves just for safety's sake. This can get a little bit warm when you're sanding, so you just take a break, you let it cool down. But you know, having some good gloves, that's always a good thing. But anyway, we have it finished, and as you sand, all you do is have a good setup block, something nice and flat. I really like these the Slockhart Corner setup blocks. I mean, they're really good precision. And what you do is you sand and you check it, and you put it up here, and you take a look, and you know that you're flush. It really is that simple. You'll notice the red line there is just barely still there, and there you go. So now it's nice and flat. Now we can get our tube installed, start getting things put together. Alright, so before we install our tube assembly, what I like to do is tin the tube. This helps a lot with securing the bushings when it comes time to solder them. So it's really simple. I'm using some Stay Clean Flux, and I just use a cheap disposable paintbrush, and I'll put some flux in here, just a little bit around the top. Then I'm going to have my iron right here, nice and hot. I'll add just a touch of solder to the iron. You see it coming on there like that, and then I will turn it over. I will put it on here. You can just hear it sizzle, and I just hold it there for a little bit, and there we have it. Now this tube, and on the inside there, is pre-tinned. This is going to, like I said, it's going to help you a lot when it comes to secure the bushings. Alright, so after you've tinned it, you want to make sure that there's no excess solder interfering with the fitment of the bushing. So I just take an X-Acto blade and I'll go in here and I'll clean it out. If you got a little heavy-handed, a little bit too much, you can use a round file. You can go inside there, you can clean it up, and then all you have to do is just test fit your bushing, put it in there. You don't want it to be a tight fit because we're still looking for alignment. You know, that's good. It's spinning right there. You wouldn't think so, but that little bit of solder on the inside here is going to help you. So now we can go ahead and set this up in the bracket, get it soldered. Okay, I have it all installed here on our soldering board. You notice the brad nails here. I have those on the motor shaft there. That helps keep a great alignment there. And I've measured, made sure everything is even. I'm using 15x8 wheels as my setup wheels to keep everything level. They're the perfect height. Now I'll just take a little bit of Stay Clean, a little flux, and just brush it on there, and by the bushings too, just like that. Pretty simple. Now I'm just going to solder this in place. Not really hard. Just a little bit is all we need. And it's flowed all the way around. Now we can do this side. And you can just see the solder go around the tube. All right, that's soldered in place. Clean our iron off here. Now we're going to do the bushings. We don't need a whole lot of solder, just a little bit. And you can hear it sizzle. And you can just see it flow around. Yep. All right. Perfect on that side. Go over here to this side. Get me a little solder on here. Like I said, not a whole lot. There we go. There we go. This takes a little bit. And that's good to go. I've just seen it flow all the way around. Got a nice flow. They are solid. Good to go. Okay, we're all finished. I took it out, used a Dremel, cleaned up a little bit of the excess solder, cleaned it up a little bit, but the important thing is here is that we have a dropout. So now you know that this axle has just got no resistance when it does that. So that's what you want. Just let it drop out. So we're good to go there. Now we're going to take this, put it back in there, get it all lined, and work on the rest of the chassis.